Welcome to Awake and Activate. Today on Awake and Activate, we're going to talk about the biggest deception ever, cults. And in part one, we're going to go over narcissist, special gifts and abilities, and the bite model, and ways to discern whether you've gotten yourself mixed up in a cult. This will be a several part series as there's a lot of information to go over in order to be truly set free. I'm inserting the Fair Use Act as I will be using articles and other publications to display information that is available for you to research and look into yourself. So we're using this for the purposes of criticism, news, reporting, teaching, and parody. All source information will be listed in the description box below. Please do look into things for yourself because after all, this is about your health and your well-being. One of the biggest deceptions ever is to think that in every aspect of our life that we are handing over our very divine spark, our very gifts and abilities over to another. And a lot of times, unknowingly, we are doing this. I'm hoping that by exposing this information to you, that you will look more into the information yourself and get a better understanding of who and what you are, how special and divine that you are, and how each of the gifts and abilities that these cult leaders display as being special or cut above the rest, that one thing they fail to tell you is that everything that they are doing, you also have the ability within you to have operate in your daily life. We're going to show some telltale signs of what to look for to see if you have fell into the trappings of the biggest deception ever. And this is going to be a mini series. We're going to touch on many different aspects and different cults that you are going to be surprised that are actual cults. Yeah, they're everywhere. And their whole design and purpose is to feel superior and let you feel inferior. And so that way you're handing over your abilities and making them stronger. And a lot of times, the claims that these cult leaders have, they don't even have the abilities. It's actually you that has the abilities. And by handing your abilities over to them, you then are giving them the abilities. This will make more sense as we get further along into this several part series. But today, we're going to talk about narcissists. We're going to talk about the bite model, which is a way to discern cults and to find out if you have inadvertently taken part in one. And the special gifts that they claim to have and that you do not. And that's the funny part, is because there's nothing that's going on within them, if they have the gifts operating in them, that is not already going on with you. So let's move forward and let's start with the bite model. It's all capital letters, BITE. And it's an abbreviation, and you'll see here just a second, because I'm going to go ahead and play the article for you So there's no misunderstanding on the message that is given here from it is Steve Hassan's article and studies into cults and cult behavior that came up with this methodology of finding out whether or not it's you're accidentally or inadvertently you think you're in a community of equals, but you're actually in a cult and looked at as an inferior, not an equal. So let's get to it, shall we?
Many people think of mind control as an ambiguous, mystical process that cannot be defined in concrete terms. In reality, mind control refers to a specific set of methods and techniques, such as hypnosis or thought stopping, that influence how a person thinks, feels, and acts. Like many bodies of knowledge, it is not inherently good or evil. If mind control techniques are used to empower an individual to have more choice, and authority for his life remains within himself, the effects can be beneficial. For example, benevolent mind control can be used to help people quit smoking without affecting any other behavior. Mind control becomes destructive when the locus of control is external and it is used to undermine a person's ability to think and act independently. As employed by the most destructive cults, mind control seeks nothing less than to disrupt an individual's authentic identity and reconstruct it in the image of the cult leader. I developed the BITE model to help people determine whether or not a group is practicing destructive mind control. The BITE model helps people understand how cults suppress individual members' uniqueness and creativity. BITE stands for the cult's control of an individual's behavior, intellect, thoughts, and emotions. It is important to understand that destructive mind control can be determined when the overall effect of these four components promotes dependency and obedience to some leader or cause. It is not necessary for every single item on the list to be present. Mind-controlled cult members can live in their own apartments, have 9-to-5 jobs, be married with children, and still be unable to think for themselves and act independently. We are all subject to influence from our parents, friends, teachers, co-workers. When this influence helps someone grow and maintain an internal locus of control, it is healthy. Influence which is used to keep people mindless and dependent is unhealthy. To download a PDF of the influence continuum graphic, click here. Destructive mind control is not just used by cults. Learn about the human trafficking BITE model and the terrorism BITE model. The BITE model. I. Behavior control. 2. Information control. 3. Thought control. 4. Emotional control. Behavior control. 1. Regulate individuals' physical reality. 2. Dictate where, how, and with whom the member lives and associates or isolates. 3. When, how, and with whom the member has sex. 4. Control types of clothing and hairstyles. 5. Regulate diet, food and drink, hunger and/or fasting. 6. Manipulation and deprivation of sleep. 7. Financial exploitation, manipulation, or dependence. 8. Restrict leisure, entertainment, vacation time. 9. Major time spent with group indoctrination and rituals and/or self-indoctrination including the internet. 10. Permission required for major decisions. 11. Thoughts, feelings, and activities, of self and others, reported to superiors. 12. Rewards and punishments used to modify behaviors, both positive and negative. 13. Discourage individualism, encourage groupthink. 14. Impose rigid rules and regulations. 15. Instill dependency and obedience. 16. Threaten harm to family and friends. 17. Force individual to rape or be raped. 18. Instill dependency and obedience. 19. Encourage and engage in corporal punishment. Information control. 1. Deception. A. Deliberately withhold information. B. Distort information to make it more acceptable. C. Systematically lie to the cult member. 2. Minimize or discourage access to non-cult sources of information, including a. Internet, TV, radio, books, articles, newspapers, magazines, other media. B. Critical information. C. Former members. D. Keep members busy so they don't have time to think and investigate. E. Control through cell phone with texting, calls, internet tracking. 3. Compartmentalize information into outsider versus insider doctrines. A. Ensure that information is not freely accessible. B. Control information at different levels and missions within group. C. Allow only leadership to decide who needs to know what and when. 4. Encourage spying on other members. A. Impose a buddy system to monitor and control member. B. Report deviant thoughts, feelings, and actions to leadership. C. Ensure that individual behavior is monitored by group. 5. Extensive use of cult-generated information and propaganda, including A. Newsletters, magazines, journals, audiotapes, videotapes, YouTube, movies, and other media. B. Misquoting statements or using them out of context from non-cult sources. 6. Unethical use of confession. A. Information about sins used to disrupt and / or dissolve identity boundaries. B. Withholding forgiveness or absolution. C. Manipulation of memory, possible false memories. Thought control. 1. Require members to internalize the group's doctrine as truth. A. Adopting the group's map of reality as reality. B. Instill black and white thinking. C. Decide between good versus evil. D. Organize people into us versus them, insiders versus outsiders. 2. Change person's name and identity. 3. Use of loaded language and cliches which constrict knowledge, stop critical thoughts and reduce complexities into platitudinous buzzwords. 4. Encourage only good and proper thoughts. 5. Hypnotic techniques are used to alter mental states, undermine critical thinking and even to age regress the member. 6. Memories are manipulated and false memories are created. 7. Teaching thought-stopping techniques which shut down reality testing by stopping negative thoughts and allowing only positive thoughts, including A. Denial, rationalization, justification, wishful thinking. B. Chanting. C. Meditating. D. Praying. E. Speaking in tongues. F. Singing or humming. 8. Rejection of rational analysis, critical thinking, constructive criticism. 9. Forbid critical questions about leader, doctrine, or policy. Allowed. 10. Labeling alternative belief systems as illegitimate, evil, or not useful. Emotional control. 1. Manipulate and narrow the range of feelings. Some emotions and / or needs are deemed as evil, wrong, or selfish. 2. Teach emotion-stopping techniques to block feelings of homesickness, anger, doubt. 3. Make the person feel that problems are always their own fault, never the leader's or the group's fault. 4. Promote feelings of guilt or unworthiness, such as A. Identity guilt. B. You are not living up to your potential. C. Your family is deficient. D. Your past is suspect. E. Your affiliations are unwise. F. Your thoughts, feelings, actions are irrelevant or selfish. G. Social guilt. H. Historical guilt. 5. Instill fear, such as fear of A. Thinking independently. B. The outside world. C. Enemies. D. Losing one's salvation. E. Leaving or being shunned by the group. F. Others' disapproval. 6. Extremes of emotional highs and lows, love bombing and praise one moment and then declaring you are a horrible sinner. 7. Ritualistic and sometimes public confession of sins. 8. Phobia indoctrination, inculcating irrational fears about leaving the group or questioning the leader's authority. A. No happiness or fulfillment possible outside of the group. B. Terrible consequences if you leave, hell, demon possession, incurable diseases, accidents, suicide, insanity, 10,000 reincarnations, etc. C. Shunning of those who leave, fear of being rejected by friends, peers, and family. D. Never a legitimate reason to leave. Those who leave are weak, undisciplined, unspiritual, worldly, brainwashed by family or counselor, or seduced by money, sex, or rock and roll. E. Threats of harm to ex-member and family.
In the bite model, you do not have to fit every single category or characteristic to be considered a cult. What you need to look for is if they hold any of those traits, that it's time to take a closer view at the people that you're surrounding yourself with and the groups, which they no longer call themselves cults, they call themselves communities. And if you leave the community or engage with other communities, they deem you a traitor or wishy washy when it should be perfectly okay for you to interact with anyone whom you choose. A lot of times they claim that they have gifts and abilities and that they are the ones that hold these gifts and abilities and the answers to whatever comes up in life, making them superior and you inferior. They tend to target people who have been through some kind of a trauma, loneliness, depression, these kind of life events that happen throughout and that makes you vulnerable. So they target the vulnerable and get them to follow them and almost to the point of worshiping. If something goes on within their quote unquote community and you bring it to the leader or the leader of the platform's attention, they usually dismiss you and pretty much say, well, you know, that's something you need to deal with. Um, Everybody's supposed to be mature here, or you're dismissed, which again puts the cult leader or the community leader in a higher platform and makes you inferior to them. That it is something that you did wrong, not somebody that they have on their platform. You might also find that when people are saying things that you manifest within you, let me give you an example. People talk about ascension flu. This I can talk about because I'm familiar with it. Now, I don't suffer from any of these ascension flu symptoms, but the reason I don't suffer from any of these is because I understand that anything that is within anybody else is also within me. And my goal here is for you to know how special and divine that you are and to not give away your sovereignty and your divinity to others. So when you're listening to people and they're saying that you're going to feel headaches, nausea, dizziness because we're shifting, and then you do have headaches, nausea, and dizziness, that should be a telltale sign to you how powerful that you are, that you were able to manifest what that community leader or that person on the platform said, and you manifested it within you. Use that as a confirmation of how powerful of a being that you are, instead of handing it over to them that they are correct and that they have these special abilities that you do not have within you. Now, I want to look into narcissistic behavior and what a narcissistic traits would be. Because a lot of times, these community leaders do tend to have narcissistic behaviors tied to them. They need to feel superior. They need the adoration of others. Whether or not they operate in the gift or abilities that they state that they do, that is up for question also. They could be hearing it from another platform, and out of jealousy and envy, they mimic it. So then it appears that they are operating from these gifts and abilities. And instead of seeking from within them and unlocking them, they just say that they are already operating in them. It's not saying that they cannot do these things. What I'm saying is they don't put the time and effort into it in order to unlock it within them. The equality of each of us is so amazing. And that is why they prey on people who are traumatized, depressed, dealing with illness, some of the things that life throws at us. And it makes them easy targets and easy prey to fall into these false communities. Okay, so now let's look at narcissistic traits.
What are some characteristics of a narcissist? Lack of empathy. This is a universal across the board characteristic of narcissism. Narcissists do not have the capacity to feel what someone else is going through, to put themselves in someone else's shoes, or realize what a person's needs or wants are. Grandiose view of themselves. The inflated ego. An ordinary accomplishment or task is required to generate praise. Actions or ideas are blown out of proportion. There is a lack of humility in their persona. Lying. Because of a narcissist's tendency to retain a grandiose image of themselves, lying is a tool that they use to sustain their trapped identity. It is an example of how the compulsion to uphold their superiority has no limits. Manipulation. A narcissist does not have a developed sense of conscience. Therefore, they have the ability to use deceptive tactics to influence an individual's actions, thoughts, words, or behaviors. Hypocrisy. There are no rules when it comes to what is allowed for a narcissist and what is allowed for their peers or loved ones. The narcissist who is setting any kind of ground rules is also not the one setting an example of them. Seduction. Most narcissists make a very good first impression. They have built themselves up to be charming and charismatic. It is a very effective way for them to draw people in, building their narcissist supply. Blame. The definition of blame is to place responsibility or fault onto someone else. A narcissist will project blame onto an innocent person as to relieve to them from any wrongdoing. Shame. Ever heard of the term you point one finger at someone and you are pointing three back at yourself? This is the epitome of the narcissist. They use shaming as a technique to bring down others' self-worth, since a healthy sense of self-worth within them is almost non-existent. Many times you see narcissists gain energy from putting others down. It makes them feel better. Or at least, they think so. Judgment. You hear a lot of narcissists say that they think they have a very good understanding of people. This is not entirely true, yet they feel this way because their way of trying to understand people is mostly by creating judgments. Competition. A desire for a narcissist to feel that they are best feeds their affinity towards competition. It can be anything from running the most profitable to business to whose teeth are whiter. You will find a lot of top executives and other ranking leaders to be narcissists because of their ability to be competitive. Envy. Envy is different from jealousy in that envy is feeling discontentment or resentful from not having something, as opposed to jealousy, which is the fear of losing something. Narcissists will always have a grandiose view of themselves, yet they can also see when someone else has something they don't, or if someone else is better at them at something. This disrupts their image of the idealized self, and as a result, they turn to envy and sometimes can act on it as well. Sense of entitlement. A narcissist feels obliged to privileges or special treatment, many times without good reason. This goes along with the idea of narcissistic supply, where everything is an extension of them and, therefore, to be used as they please. Negative responses to feedback/criticism. The narcissistic ego seems big, but because it is unhealthy, it is easy to hurt the narcissist if something that is said does not go along with their grandiose image of themselves. The child that has never learned how to grow up responds as a result. This can often also lead to narcissistic rage. Delusion. Narcissists live in their own world. They are completely delusional that they did anything wrong, and in their world their grandiose self is completely true and no one else really understands their worth. Lack of conscience. It is very rare to ever hear the words "I'm sorry" from a narcissist. Instead, you will hear a plethora of justifications, excuses, or even blame. They can say and do some of the most awful things and not bat an eye. Lack of remorse in another example. Lack of an emotional world. Narcissists are not feelers. They are not known to use feelings unless it has a motive behind them. It is not because they don't care, it is simply because they have not developed an emotional world from a young age. Addiction. Due to the fact that narcissists lack an emotional world, they are constantly trying to escape their own reality. This takes the form of addictions: drugs, alcohol, gambling, shopping, sex, and so forth. Other qualities of narcissists: lack of a sense of humor, superficial, superiority complex, materialistic, control freak, perfectionist, micromanager.
We just went through a ton of information, from the bite model to narcissistic behavior to gifts and abilities being displayed by a community or cult leader. And what I want you to take away from this and get just the fundamental understanding of, if you've gotten yourself entangled into one of these types of groups, there are ways of testing it. And one would be to withdraw yourself or to raise question to those who are presenting. Do they answer non apologetically? Are they able to make mistakes? A lot of times they will just lie and say whatever they think you want to hear at the time. But over time, they always do reveal themselves. Remember, they prey on those people who are weak, who have went through some trauma or personal trauma within their life that they have not yet recovered from. And recovering from whatever trauma, whether it be child abuse when you were young, or a traumatic event, a death in the family that was very recent. It's a plethora, a divorce, heartbreak, many things that happen while we are here are for expansion and experience. By experiencing the lower lows, that pendulum swings far to the one direction. But realize this, that when that pendulum swings hard to that direction while you're going through that, it's going to come back the other direction with more speed and momentum. So look forward to the good things that are coming your way. And realize that when somebody is displaying gifts and abilities, and you happen to go into a community where you're not treated so well because you do display these gifts and abilities that have opened up within you already, it could just simply be because it's a cult type setting with narcissistic behaviors in place, and you are a threat to them. Therefore, they don't treat you so well. They shun you from the community because you're a threat. Because you display the gifts within you, showing that it is possible, which they don't want anyone to know because it would take away their status, that everyone has these things within them. I'm pretty shy about talking about the things that I operate in. But the reason is because simply I know that if I can do it, you can do it too. I want you to open up. I want you to understand who and what you are, the very abilities that are within you. I do not want cult like followers. I want subscribers that are interested in opening up the gifts within them and understanding that they've always been with you. It's just a matter of getting in touch, knowing yourself, and operating in them. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to have challenges along the way. It just means that you will handle things in a different way, a form of maturity. A lot of the things that were listed out are things that I would think would be in grade school playground areas. You know, my bike is better than your bike type of a thing. So when I dealt with a narcissist, I used to have him on my platform and we would have pre conversation. And in the pre conversation, as soon as we went live, what we talked about that I said ended up coming from the other person's mouth as their own. And I was easily able to see that. Now, not everybody has that kind of advantage. But since I seen that, I've been blacklisted from a community and shunned. And I am not going to ask anyone to choose one person over another person because I understand that the divine spark is in everybody. So I hope that this helped you get a little understanding about what we call communities today as mini cults is what they truly are. Because try crossing over and going and making your presence known in several different areas. A lot of times where you see the communities may not accept you, but it's not everybody. There are open minded people in each one of these communities that are able to think for themselves. And it takes strength, especially when you're going through hard times in your life, where you need an ear for somebody to just listen and be there for you, rather than have somebody dictate to you that it's your fault, it's your problem, you need to deal with it. You know, there's such a huge difference in the dynamics of that relationship. When you find people who will actually listen to you without judgment and be there for you, you have met a friend. Now, don't expect every friend to be able to solve all your problems. Some of your friends may tell you things that you may not want to hear. Like if you are really super depressed, someone may give you a phone number to get some help because not every single thing that comes up, everybody is qualified to deal with. That's why we have these different areas for police, you know, people to go to get the help that they need, to get the strength to carry on, especially when a traumatic event happens in somebody's life. And it could be from being diagnosed with an illness, loss in the family, divorce, heartbreak. These are all common things in our lives. But as for gifts and abilities, there is no competition there. Our passion will be what opens up the one that to the fullest, but we're not off limits to any of them. You can get mastery in the one and then go on for another one. There is nothing that I'm doing that you cannot do also. And if I can help you to open those up within you, I'm happy to do it because I understand your sovereignty and your divinity. As long as you can understand my sovereignty and my divinity, we are on equal footing. I am not higher than anybody else, and I am not lower than anybody else. The only thing that separates us is that we all hold different pieces to the puzzle. And by holding different pieces to the puzzle, when we come together and we share with each other, we complete it. This grand design has been made for us to work together, not to set up communities and cults with guidelines and rigid rules that if you see this, you can be in our group. And if you don't see this, you cannot. If you think this, you can be in our group. If you don't see this, you cannot. And also, really, please, when people are talking about ascension flu and you have manifested that ascension flu within yourself, thinking it is a shift, that right there is proof of how powerful of a manifester that you are yourself. And at that point, you can let go of the information that is being shared with you on such things, because you get the understanding and the understanding that you yourself manifested. It was not a prophecy that this individual said. It was you manifesting it within yourself. You are a powerful divine being. And look forward to the next part on exposing these cults or slash communities. And with that, guys, always share what you know so we can all listen and grow. And have yourself a wonderful day. I will talk to you soon.